Tonight at 10, the Prime Minister promises to set out his plans shortly for lifting England's lockdown completely on July the 19th. Almost 28,000 new COVID cases today, but Boris Johnson says he's increasingly confident about the impact of vaccines.
The speed of that vaccine rollout has broken that link between infection and mortality. And that's an amazing thing. That gives us the scope, we think, on the 19th to go ahead.
Boris Johnson says he hopes to get life back to as close to normal as possible. Also tonight, returning to work, the government has begun winding down the furlough scheme today as the economy reopens. Handcuffed in court, the finance boss at Trump Organization pleads not guilty after a long investigation into allegations of fraud at the former president's company. Princes William and Harry unveil a statue of Diana, Princess of Wales, on what would have been their mother's 60th birthday. And the 8-times Wimbledon champion Roger Federer eases into the third round to face Britain's Cameron Norrie.
And coming up in the sport on the BBC News channel, Mark Cavendish makes a 32nd stage win at the Tour de France as he closes in on the record of 34 held by Eddie Merckx.
Good evening. The Prime Minister says he will set out in the next few days how he plans to end coronavirus restrictions in England on the 19th of July. Boris Johnson says he believes we are in the final furlong amid growing evidence that the vaccination programme is breaking the link between the number of cases and deaths. He said he recognised people's impatience for a return to normality, but warned there could still be some extra precautions needed. It comes as the UK today recorded its highest daily number of new cases since the end of January, almost 28,000. Here's our health editor, Hugh Pym.
It's been more than a year of unprecedented restrictions, including mask wearing and lockdowns, with shops and some other businesses told to close their doors. But now, largely thanks to the vaccination programme, ministers say an end is in sight in England on July the 19th. Boris Johnson said vaccines had broken the link between COVID infections and deaths with the virus.
That's an amazing thing. That gives us the scope, we think, on the 19th to go ahead, cautiously, irreversibly, to go ahead.
Experts agree that vaccines are having a significant impact. During the peak in January and February, daily hospital admissions, seen here on the right, moved up sharply following the rise in cases, seen here on the left. But since May, cases have risen quite fast, but hospital admissions on the right have gone up much more slowly. But questions are being asked about scenes like these on Tuesday after England's football victory, set to be repeated as the team progresses in the tournament. Public health officials are urging people to follow the guidelines, advising them to avoid gathering indoors. Data in Scotland revealed the number of cases were linked to fans travelling to London 2 weeks ago.
You have the potential for lots of super spreader events all across Europe, not just from fans travelling to actual matches, but fans travelling to the cities and then going out to the bars and celebrating on trains, on public transport, but also at each other's houses.
The European organising body UEFA has been branded as utterly responsible by a German government minister for allowing big crowds. UEFA said it was fully aligned with local health guidelines at each venue. The UK currently has a lot more cases than other leading European nations, at 281 per 1 million people on the rolling daily average. Spain, for example, has 110. France and Italy, a lot fewer. The UK's vaccination programme, though, keeping deaths relatively low, is well ahead, at 114 total first and second doses per 100 people, followed by Spain, Italy and France. The European organising body UEFA has been branded as utterly irresponsible by a German government minister for allowing big crowds. UEFA said it was fully aligned with local health guidelines at each venue.
The three conditions for a new wave of excess hospitalizations and deaths before the autumn are therefore in place. New variants, deficit in vaccine uptake, increased social mixing.
The UK's ministers, meanwhile, believe that the successful vaccination rollout paves the way for a further opening up of society, though the drive is still on to get as many people jabbed as possible. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
Well, the latest official figures show that in the past 24 hours, 22 deaths were reported and 27,989 new infections were recorded across the UK, the highest daily number since the end of January. It means an average of 20,909 new cases per day in the UK in the past week. More than 141,000 people received a first dose of the vaccine in the latest 24-hour period. Nearly 45 million people have now had their first jab. That's 85.2% of UK adults. More than 175,000 people have had their second dose in the latest 24-hour period. So more than 33 million people are now fully vaccinated. That's 62.7% of UK adults. Well, our health editor, Hugh Pym, is with me now. So the Prime Minister is sounding pretty upbeat about the 19th of July, despite another rise in new cases.
Yes, Sophie, ministers seem pretty set on going ahead now on July the 19th in England with the final easing of restrictions. And it seems as if senior scientists and official advisors are cautiously optimistic about that and think it's certainly very possible, based on the fact, as we've been hearing, that cases are rising rapidly, up 72% week on week, but hospital admissions rising much less rapidly and deaths relatively very low. And it seems likely we'll hear, maybe in less than a week, the future for England beyond July the 19th, for example, masks and social distancing, what will happen with that. It seems as if caution will continue to be urged with hand washing and ventilation for indoor gatherings and all that sort of thing. But presentationally, there might be a problem. If cases carry on rising at this rate through to July the 19th, hospital numbers will have gone up a bit. It may not look quite as clear-cut by then when everything goes ahead about what will happen next, because it seems as if cases would carry on rising into August with hospital numbers. Hospitals are very, very busy at the moment through A&E, and that may well continue. But ministers have to make a judgment. They know that the economy will benefit from opening up, and it's the same in all parts of the UK.
Hugh, thank you. Well, the government has begun winding down the furlough scheme, which has paid 80% of the wages of millions of people who've been unable to work during the pandemic. From today, firms have to start contributing towards that before the scheme ends completely in the autumn. More than 11.5 million jobs have been on the scheme in total. It has cost more than £60 billion. Nearly 2.5 million jobs were still registered at the end of May, with 30% of firms still using the scheme. Here's our economics editor, Faisal Islam.
In theory, the almost entirely empty offices that have become the norm over the past year or so will soon begin to fill up again.
Hi, Jen.
Hiya, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
At Newmarket Holidays, bosses keep in touch with furloughed workers such as Gemma, but as the tide slowly starts to go out on government pandemic support, considerable uncertainty remains after 15 months away from the office.
So it's very much highs and lows. It's not been a holiday by no means. It's difficult for mental health. You then have to really get yourself in a mindset of, I have to carry on, I have to do something, because I don't know when I'm going to go back to work.
Now, you'd have hoped the travel sector to have bounced back.
The chief financial officer here says in this line of work, the outgoings have started before cash comes in.
That is, we've still got bills, be it this building that we're paying for, be it some brochures for next year.
We're paying some of the government support as well.
Correct.
The VAT. Yeah.
We've been paying the VAT deferral, that kicked in a couple of months ago. Seabull's loan, we're having to repay that.
So you have the costs coming in.
Spot on. All the costs coming in, but no revenue, because we haven't got anyone going on holiday apart from a small bit in the UK.
In the city, the Chancellor was praising the lifeline given by bankers through mortgage holidays and loans. The Bank of England governor addressing concerns about rising prices.
I've set out the reasons why we expect this rise in inflation to be a temporary feature of the bounce back. It's important not to overreact to temporarily strong growth and inflation, to ensure that the recovery is not undermined by a premature tightening in monetary conditions.
The Bank of England's message is that it will carry on supporting the economy. It doesn't want people to panic about inflation above target and due to go higher. And that's because it assesses that these rises in prices are temporary one-off factors that arise from the reopening of the economy, but also because of the uncertainty. Uncertainty about the pandemic and its variants, but also about the overall impact of this gradual rollback of the government's support to the economy, especially the furlough scheme. Back at Newmarket Holidays, Pippa is one of the government's great hopes. Having decided to go long and offer support into the summer, Pippa was straight off the furlough scheme back into her job, prepping the new travel brochure.
The travel industry in particular is on its knees, and without that cash injection from the government, I don't know where we would be. So I certainly think that I wouldn't probably have a job.
The latest figures show, however, that an increasing proportion of those left on furlough are older workers. There is a fear about how many won't be able to step back into their jobs. Faisal Islam, BBC News.
Nissan has announced a major expansion of electric vehicle production at its car plant in Sunderland, which will create more than 1,600 new jobs. The Japanese car maker says it will build its new generation all-electric model there using batteries made on site. Our business editor, Simon Jack, reports.
These are the new engines of the world automotive economy. A new battery factory will make 100,000 of them a year to be fitted to a brand new model at a plant supplied by its own renewable energy grid. £1 billion investment, creating over 6,000 jobs here and in the supply chain.
Today, we are announcing the world's first manufacturing ecosystem in Sunderland because of the skill and competencies of our workforce and the competitiveness of this plant. And I do believe that Sunderland will become our flagship business model to apply in other parts of the world.
The Prime Minister was on site, as you might expect, after a government contribution of around £100 million to the project. Money well spent, according to Boris Johnson.
This is something that is a massive benefit to the UK economy. Nissan is going to be creating about 900 jobs alone. Then the battery gigafactory, a further 750, plus thousands potentially in the supply chains. But what it's also doing is helping to lengthen the lead of this country in green low carbon technology.
It wasn't so long ago that Nissan was warning a no-deal Brexit could see it leave the UK. The future now looks brighter.
Nissan's always had a strong presence in the northeast of England, and I think what this announcement does is solidifies that for the younger generation for the future.
This is clearly great news for this industry, for this region and for the UK. In the future, with petrol and diesel bans coming down the tracks, if you don't have a battery industry, you won't have much of a car industry. But investments like this are being made all over the world. And this will have to be the first of many if the UK is to keep pace with the electric car revolution.
Batteries are heavy and require careful handling, so building cars and batteries close together makes economic and operational sense.
By having the gigafactories in the UK, we're actually safeguarding the future of the automotive industry and the jobs that go with that. And yes, we are behind Germany, for example, who've already got production at 6 or 7 times this level, but we can catch up, and this is a very good start.
It's not just Nissan. Vauxhall is in talks with the government about its own electric plans, with an announcement expected imminently. This is also a race against the clock. From 2024, the Brexit deal means cars exported to the EU must have higher levels of local content to avoid tariffs. The UK government started wooing Nissan 35 years ago. It's been a success story, which, with government support helping oil the wheels, looks set to continue for many years to come. Simon Jack, BBC News, Sunderland.
Prince William and Prince Harry have unveiled a statue of their mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, on what would have been her 60th birthday. The Duke of Cambridge and Duke of Sussex, whose relationship has been strained in recent months, met for the first time since the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral in April. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Witchell reports.
The event should have been solely about their mother, the unveiling by her sons of a statue of Diana, Princess of Wales. But the sons, William and Harry, have fallen out. The special bond between two young princes has been broken. Harsh words are said to have been spoken. This afternoon it could largely be hidden. They were with the Spencer family, Diana's 2 elder sisters, Sarah and Jane, and her brother Charles. Everybody chatted quite amiably. How could it have been otherwise? William and Harry side by side for some of the time, but more often than not, they stood apart. Until the moment in which they will surely have felt their mother's influence. And perhaps it will have encouraged them to move on. Because William and Harry must surely know that the current tensions between them are not good for them or for the wider family. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News.
Donald Trump's company and its finance chief have been charged with tax-related crimes after a long investigation into allegations of fraud at Trump Organization. At a hearing in New York, the prosecutor said there'd been a sweeping and audacious illegal payment scheme at the former president's company. Alan Weisselberg, who's worked for Donald Trump for decades, and company lawyers have denied the charges. Our North America editor John Sopel is outside Trump Tower in New York for us now. John.
Sophie, is this about politics or is this about justice? The district attorney has no doubt. He says he's purely following the law wherever it takes, and that is why these prosecutions are taking place. But from Donald Trump himself, absolute fury. He says it's a disgrace, a witch hunt and a plot against him. I should say my report contains flashing images.
The powerful money man of Donald Trump's business empire today led into court in handcuffs, surrounded by police, a heavy-handed and deliberate show of force by the New York authorities. The charge is being led by the district attorney Cy Vance. He'd been hoping to flip Mr. Weisselberg so that he'd work with prosecutors. But the Trump CFO is having none of it. And a statement from the Trump Organization spat defiance over the treatment of Mr. Weisselberg. He's now being used by the Manhattan District Attorney as a pawn in a scorched earth attempt to harm the former president. This isn't justice, this is politics. After a short hearing, he left court, charged with fraud, charged with giving perks to Trump executives and family members that were never declared. On the face of it, these charges might seem, after a 3-year investigation, relatively minor, keeping payments off the books. But the district attorney is making clear to Mr. Weisselberg, who's just leaving court now, that this is the start of a process, not the end of it. Trump lawyers after the hearing were trying to sound upbeat.
The company is very, very optimistic and we're certainly hopeful that there will not be significant effects.
Alan Weisselberg has worked for the Trump family for nearly half a century.
Replacing George this week is my chief financial officer, Alan Weisselberg. And you think George is tough? Wait till you see Alan.
What Donald Trump desperately needs now is that he remains tough, because Weisselberg is under pressure from the New York authorities to tell them everything he knows. This isn't over. Nowhere near. John Sopel, BBC News, New York.
The polls have just closed in the Batley and Spen by-election in West Yorkshire. Labour is defending a majority of 3,000 and it's being seen as a test of Sir Keir Starmer's leadership. Our political correspondent Alex Forsyth is there for us now. Alex.
Well, Sophie, this is a by-election that's been hard fought and at times fraught. Perhaps that's a sign of just what's at stake, because a loss here for Labour would be damaging and would undoubtedly prompt another period of introspection about the party's direction, but perhaps more crucially, the party's leadership. Now, for the Tories, this is a test of whether they can continue their charge in this part of the country now that it's their handling of the pandemic rather than Brexit that's at the forefront of people's minds. So the result here will have national significance, but there are important local factors at play here too. This was the seat once of Joe Cox, the MP who was murdered by a far-right extremist. So it has known division before, and this has been a difficult campaign. Tense, there's been anger, there's been harassment, there's been a police presence on the ground. It's been a highly charged contest in a very crowded field, some 16 candidates standing, and among them George Galloway, the former MP. Now, he's been targeting Labour supporters among this area's Muslim community, and Labour sources have been downbeat about the impact he might have had tonight, saying the numbers look tough, this could be difficult. The Tories, though, saying it's too close to call. We'll get the result early hours of tomorrow morning. The fallout will no doubt follow.
Alex, thank you. China's President Xi Jinping has warned that foreign powers will get their heads cracked and bloodied if they attempt to bully or influence the country. He delivered a defiant speech at an event marking the centenary of the ruling Communist Party. It comes as China faces criticism over alleged human rights abuses and its crackdown in Hong Kong. Our China correspondent John Sudworth has the story.
The unmistakable hallmarks of Communist Party rule were front and centre of its celebrations. The total control, the omnipotent leader, the unquestioning loyalty. Overlooking Tiananmen Square, the General Secretary spoke of how the party had saved China from a history of humiliation and of the power it now wields.
The Chinese people will never be bullied, oppressed or enslaved. Anyone who dares to try will have their heads cracked and bloodied against a great war of steel forged by 1.4 billion Chinese people.
There are no references, of course, to the fact that on this spot in 1989, the party clung to power by shooting dead hundreds of unarmed protesters. Nor any mention of the violence and chaos of Chairman Mao's rule. And while the focus is on the economic success and China's big leap in living standards, critics fear that Xinjiang's internment camps and the crackdown on dissent in Hong Kong reveal once again the true nature of one-party rule. This former party insider was expelled last year for voicing concerns about the direction the party was taking. She's now in effective exile in the US.
In China, 100 years old also means a person has lived long, and it is time to think of death. The Communist Party should review its mistakes. It should be seeking redemption, not celebrating.
The theory used to be that as China got richer, it would get freer. But this celebration of rigid, authoritarian control represents the total rejection of that notion, and with a triumphalism that's causing concern, including here in democratic Taiwan, with Xi Jinping making clear the party's mission to control a territory it still sees as its own. Convinced that it's democracy, not authoritarianism, that's in decline, China intends to party on. John Sudworth, BBC News, Taipei.
An 82-year-old woman will become the oldest person to go into space this month, thanks to the Amazon founder Jeff Bezos. Wally Funk was one of the first women trained to be an astronaut in the 1960s, but the NASA program was cancelled. Now, 60 years later, she will join the tech billionaire on board the first crewed flight by his Blue Origin company out of the Earth's atmosphere later this month. On the fourth day at Wimbledon, 18-year-old Emma Raducanu stunned former French Open finalist Marketa Vondrousova to become the only British woman into the third round. And British number 2, Cameron Norrie's prize for breezing into round 3 is a match against the 8-time champion Roger Federer, as our sports correspondent Joe Wilson reports.
You can look through every match scheduled for a Wimbledon day, and then it happens early evening, out on court 12. Emma Raducanu. And a huge breakthrough. Keep in mind the British player's just 18, ranked 338 in the world, and that her opponent Marketa Vondrousova once reached a Grand Slam final.
No holding back.
At match point on the verge of the third round in her first major tournament, would she collapse? Well, only once the match was won. Emma Raducanu, A-level student just months ago, Britain's remaining woman at Wimbledon.
Absolutely fantastic.
My motivation is honestly to just keep staying here. I just love it, love being here. I mean, the selection of food is just incredible. The whole surroundings. I'm just taking it all in, and I just really want to prolong my experience.
Well, Cameron Norrie is one of 3 British men in round 3. That's him nearest the camera. Seeded 29 here, Norris' straight sets victory over Alex Bolt was full of confidence, decisive. He also seemed to revel in the atmosphere, That's encouraging. Who'd want to play him next? Well, this guy. Roger Federer set up a match with Norrie by beating Richard Gasquet gently.
Oh, you're kidding me.
And it was straight sets. Well, today was the day when we finally got play everywhere. Look, sunshine. No need for a roof. Oh, but Friday night is scheduled for another Murray night. You have been warned. Joe Wilson, BBC News, Wimbledon.
Well, that is it from us. Good night.